In this week's episode, we journey deep into one of the most mysterious places on Earth, the Nahanni Valley. Famously known as the Valley of the Headless Men, hidden within the Canadian ruggedness of the Northwest Territories, this land holds stories of gold prospectors who vanished, tales of indigenous legends, and unexplained phenomena that defy reason.
What secrets lie within its imposing cliffs and shadowy canyons? Stay tuned as we piece together the unsettling puzzle of the Nahanni Valley.
Zumundous.
And welcome to Zumundous, episode 11. I'm Doolin.
And I'm Keith.
And we've got some mysteries to get into this week, man. This one's wild. I had never heard of this before.
This is crazy.
But yeah, this is the Nahanni Valley, also known as the Valley of the Headless Men.
Yes.
I think Ichabod Crane might have something to say on this
I
one.
know,
I'm not
right?
sure. But yeah, this has got a lot of wild stories behind it. This is tales of people who have vanished. We had tales of cryptids, Bigfoot, and even dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, aliens.
Yeah, aliens, like pretty much
warring tribes.
everything in between, man.
Lost, human civilizations, that kind of stuff. And even like Shangri-La, the lost city of Shangri-La.
Okay. Well, so yeah, this is an area in the Northwest Territory. Now, if you guys know, like once you get up there in the Northwest Territory of Canada, it is huge and mostly
massive.
Massive and mostly untouched out there.
Pretty cold.
Yeah,
too.
It's really cold even in the summer. And like as this, nobody lives out here, man. This is like pristine, beautiful wilderness out there. But also, with a lot of places that are untouched by man, very dangerous.
So in 1976, this was designated as a national park, and they only get about 1,100 visitors a year. So think about that. Like it's not like Disney World; it gets way more than a day.
Yeah, I mean, so I went to Yellowstone last summer, and it was tons of visitors.
Yeah, this is a very remote part of North America.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
And it's got some cool stuff in it.
And it does, man. But it also has a harsh landscape. You've got extreme weather, dangerous wildlife.
Yep. And a unique set of dangerous wildlife.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there is legit accounts of like having larger than normal animals there.
And I think, and I'm not sure exactly, but there are some places up there in the area that has a really strange. There's a grizzly polar bear hybrid that can exist,
like a liger.
Yeah, exactly. No, but there are if you can look it up, they exist. There's a few places where polar bears and grizzlies will actually mingle with each other, and this has resulted in some hybrids.
Well, yeah, they did claim to see a grizzly bear that was like 12 feet tall, and they're usually like 10, I guess.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy, but this place has a really dark nickname, and that's the Valley of the Headless Men, also sometimes called the Valley of Vanished Souls, due to all the strange disappearances that have happened. So even before white settlers came to this region, the Dene natives would even these are the people that were indigenous to the area, they would give this area a wide berth. They would they would not go to this place. And they believed that evil spirits inhabited the region. So eventually, the white settlers came, and that brought the hunters up there, and the hunters would go out seeking game, and they would return with terrifying stories. And even some of the Dene natives spoke of an evil spirit that haunted the valley with eerie shrieks heard on windy nights.
Oh, interesting.
Now, also, but that made me raise a question, like, are you sure you just weren't hearing the wind?
Yeah, probably.
So almost reminds me a little bit of the Celtic stories of the banshee, where they would need to hear the banshee wail.
Yeah, you could. I mean, if there's canyons and stuff and trees, obviously they can create a lot of sound when.
But this gets a little bit stranger because the Dene natives that lived out there, they would describe fearsome, hairy giants that lived in the caves out in this region and carved into the canyon walls.
So this could be a couple different things, actually. Like, obviously, everybody's thinking Bigfoot right now.
Yeah,
right? Abominable snowman, Yeti, all that good stuff. But there is a theory that there might be or had been a breeding population of woolly mammoths up there. And I'm not making that up. I actually read that. Yeah. And the reasoning behind that is because they found a bunch of drawings, and there's skeletons of these bones, bones in the area and stuff. So you can figure out that a woolly mammoth is the size of an elephant and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But how would they know what they look like? So the cave paintings and stuff actually have like hair on them and things like that. And I actually kind of used a little bit of deductive reasoning, maybe because most things up there have hair on them, right? There's not a lot of lizards and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, things that grow up there are going to have hair because it's cold,
Maybe they just assume they had hair. I don't know.
Well, these supposed giants were apparently, according to the indigenous accounts of the people who lived there, the stories that have been passed down from generations, the giants were led by a pale-skinned chiefess, so a female chieftain, so to speak. These giants supposedly killed and ate anyone that trespassed into their territory.
Which, as our previous reports on giants, seems to be a common theme. They like to eat people.
On the old podcast. We should do another episode on giants because that's crazy.
A good one. Yeah.
But the Nahanni Valley was also at one time inhabited by the Naha, which was another indigenous tribe, and they were a nomadic, wandering, warlike tribe. And now the Naha were fierce warriors who raided the Dene settlements along the rivers out there in the area. So they were definitely at ends with the Dene, I guess, were kind of the more peaceful native tribes, and the Naha were not so much.
Right.
But after multiple devastating raids, a group of Dene braves set out to attack a Naha camp. So they led a counteroffensive on these assaults, and the warriors found a scattering of destroyed teepees, but no sign of the Naha natives. So it seemed as if the Naha had just vanished without a trace. And from that point, the Dene recalled tales of evil spirits and giant cannibals. So already we have, in the mix so far, we have giant hairy creatures.
Yep.
We have cannibalistic giants.
Yep.
And evil spirits. So we're up to 3 on the creepy counter already for this story.
Cryptids and stuff.
I mean 4 if you want to count the cannibalism, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
So the Dene warriors retreated, not from the Naha, but just from what they found.
From the area.
From the area. And they never encountered the Naha again. I think that was the last the Naha tribe was ever seen on the earth.
So there was a couple... I guess as we talk, and as the gold guys come in and stuff like that, they talked about possibly, when they interacted with local tribes, they would tell them about an older tribe, not the Naha, but like cavemen and stuff. Basically, they're still out there. Like a different
another tribe, like a third
subsect of older people.
Maybe like like
Eaters of the Dead or something like a Michael Crichton story.
Crazy.
It's kind of weird.
That was a good movie, by the way.
That was a good movy.
But
the 13th Warrior.
Yes, the 13th Warrior, Eaters of the Dead. But we're going off track here. So now we're going to move ahead. Now this is the early 1800s. So at this point, fur traders had wandered up to this area and established Fort Liard and the Fort of Forks, which later became Fort Simpson on the Liard River. These posts were located upriver and downriver from the mouth of the South Nahanni.
Right.
Fur traders learned of the tales of the Nahanni Valley from the Dene tribes that still lived in the area. So they traded with them, but these are some of the stories.
There's a Nahanni tribe as well, too. I mean, there's quite a few different tribes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's still some indigenous peoples living out there, I'm pretty sure. But in 1823, this is where we get into the story of John McLeod. And John McLeod was an explorer. He attempted to explore the valley, but he couldn't go far due to rapids. So I guess he was going in by way of the river. Yeah. So he tried again the following year, same results. Excuse me. But if you fast forward to the summer of 1897, we had news of a gold strike in the Klondike, which led many people to head up to this region. So, there's
the Klondike Gold Rush. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. There was a lot of gold rushes out there around this time. Some as far north as Alaska. Alaska, yeah. And that's where, Skagway comes from, the town of Skagway. And all these areas had a lot of kind of these settlements that were built up very quickly and then abandoned once the gold dried up, so to speak. But one route that was taken was a dangerous all-Canadian overland trail starting in Edmonton in Alberta. Some stampeders took an even more perilous shortcut via the South Nahanni River. Now, few made it. Many others just kind of disappeared into the valley. So this is where you start having the, you got a map pulled up there?
Yeah, I'm kind of just looking at different parts of the river and stuff. Kind of get a feel for it.
Right. So you have a lot of people that are going in there. Some of these people, you got to think these are all gold prospectors. They're all trying to get out there before the other people do. And some of them decided to be a little bit more reckless and take shortcuts out there, and a lot of those people were never seen again at that point.
Indeed.
Which is honestly like that.
Like you said right away, the terrain is
the terrain. You've got dangerous wilderness, dangerous wildlife, dangerous terrain, rapids in the river, and these people are out there. So it really doesn't. It's not too surprising that you had a lot of disappearances out there at that time.
No, it's a dangerous environment.
Yeah, it's a dangerous environment, absolutely. But after the Klondike Gold Rush, unsuccessful prospectors look for gold in the Nahanni country. So they're coming back to this dangerous area. Now, some returned with tales of a hidden tropical valley up there in the Mackenzie Mountains.
Yes.
So this valley was snow-free year-round thanks to the hot springs, but also due to that was cloaked in fog.
Okay.
You always had that kind of a foggy area. The soil was lush, and they had tales of exotic greenery that you wouldn't usually see in this part of the world. And one prospector came back and he described the animals were so fat that they appeared, quote, almost square. So maybe they stumbled into Minecraft world. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of odd.
But this is where it kind of takes back to what you were talking about with the tales of mammoths, mastodons, and other prehistoric creatures still roaming the Nahanni Valley.
Well, if there's like a lush, jungly environment, that could make sense, right?
That could, but also doesn't make sense that you would have like creatures like, remember the last ice age in about 11,500 years ago?
Most of the United States was covered in ice ages for over the last 2 million years or whatever it is, right? And it formed a lot of the stuff that... like geologically, like how our mountains are and all those kind of things. It's an area, where two plates come together up there, and it used to be an ancient seabed as well. So like the type of rock that formed this whole thing is pretty interesting and unique as well. Like you said, there's hot springs there. There's a ton of, I don't know what the right term is, but there's a ton of different micro environments, I guess, within this whole thing. They say that even the river itself is a few thousand feet deep in certain areas, which
that's wild.
I haven't been able to confirm that. People have said it convincingly, but I haven't confirmed that.
Yeah,
which would be kind of crazy.
Yeah, that would be that's really deep for a river, man.
Yeah, super deep. Doesn't make sense.
But both the native trappers and the white prospectors, they reported. So it's not just coming from one source. They reported seeing the tracks of like mammoths, mastodons, prehistoric creatures out there in the Nahanni Valley, and some frontiersmen returned with ivory tusks. Now you could say that, like, all right, well, they can go get an ivory tusk anywhere and be like, look what I found. But these, allegedly, according to the stories, were still attached to hair and flesh of the creatures.
Like new.
Yeah.
So
no, it's unclear if they found the
tusk, right?
If they found the creatures and killed it, or if they just found it on a body and took it.
Bought elephant tusks or something. I don't think you would buy an elephant tusk to bring it to Canada to pretend to bring it back from the woods. That seems like a drastic prank, right?
Yeah.
But
this is also way before the days of the internet, so people aren't doing this for clicks and views.
Right. One of the things they've mentioned though is there was a North American lion type, like not a cougar or bobcat or anything, but like a real lion. Not a mountain lion, like an
African
maned
lion.
Yeah, we had one that was kind of like back in the saber-tooth tiger days and stuff like that. That could be still breeding and things. And they were saying this was one of the possible, scary stories about what happens and what's eating people out there as well. And it was actually bigger than like a lion as we know him today, I guess. Yeah, pretty wild stuff.
That is crazy, man.
I don't necessarily think, but we have found one large breeding cat population on our show, so we've confirmed the existence of it.
The Beast of Bodmin Moor.
So which is on
the last show.
Yeah. Maybe if it's an ancient one, it might be a little less conceivable.
Well, then we get into the McLeod brothers.
Yes.
And the Lost McLeod Mine. And this is interesting. I think you've got some information on that too.
Yeah, this was the only story I knew about the place, honestly, and read about up until recently with all the other aliens and all this craziness. But
Yeah, well, yeah. So despite danger, some prospectors continued looking for gold in the Nahanni Valley even after all of these reports turned up.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had Willie and Frank McLeod,
Yep.
the Metis brothers. They all disappeared at some point in 1904 or 05 while prospecting. So we're getting into the 1900s now, early 1900s.
Yeah. So in 1904, they set out to find some gold, and the reason they did this supposedly is that they met with like somebody traded fur or something like that and paid for everything in gold, like a tribesperson or something, a hunter.
Yeah.
And they were like, whoa, gold nuggets. They were like $3 a pop back then or something, which was huge money. And they did go out there a few times and find gold over the course of their journey. I've heard this two different ways. They went out there once, never came back. And then I've heard they went out there several times and actually came and blew all their money and then went back out for gold until the final trip. And that being said, this is where I kind of get a little skeptical because one story said they made their way up the river. Well, if the river's got these crazy rapids and stuff like that, they don't have motorboats, right? It's like, how are you getting around all that?
Yeah, and like if they made their way up the river, like you're not going against the current, obviously. Yeah, so
you would
unless you're just walking alongside the river in that way.
But they're supposed to have a boat and stuff too in most of the stories, And,
so that's an inconsistency in the tale right there.
They must have hiked in to the head of the, not the head, but further up the river and then maybe sailed back down. That's definitely possible. You can port canoes and things like that, but that gets taxing when you're doing it for, potentially hundreds of miles or whatever it is. And there's 4 major canyons in the river, along the river, and they're called first, second, third, and fourth. And basically you can't get out of them once you're in them. And there's like one of them, I think second canyon is like 10
is this
miles
where
long.
did the rivers run into the canyons?
Yes. Okay, absolutely. And so if you're going to navigate that, and there's a lot of rapids.
Once you get in, you're
stuck for 10 miles. Like, you're not, there are caves and stuff like along the walls. And some of the lower ones have been explored apparently, but a lot of them are real high. So they don't, it's not you can't just get out and take a break.
Right.
Type thing. So it's just a weird environment, like we were saying. But supposedly they went up there and they started prospecting for gold in several creeks that were running into the main river, and they found stuff.
They found
quite a bit. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, this is great," And started shimmying gold in a sleuth. Is that how you call it? Sleuth.
Sure.
Yeah. So you put the rocks in there and it goes through and catches the big stuff. Basically, a big screen to filter the whatnot. And then they disappeared eventually in one of these trips, which would have been a later trip.
They disappeared, and their brother Charlie, led a search party 3 years. They've been gone for 3 years, and so by that point, you got to know they're dead.
So when they didn't come back initially, too, these guys are pretty experienced woodsmen. Nobody was freaking out because they're like, "Oh, these guys are good. They're staying out there intentionally, or they can survive.
Yeah,
it's not a huge emergency yet. Probably built a shelter, that kind of thing. Yeah."
So their brother Charlie led a search party to find them 3 years later, and they were found.
They were
not all in one piece.
No, it took a while to find them. And again, hearing two different ways. One, they're on foot, and they find them searching the area of the valley. The second one, they're coming down the river, and they see a tent along the river. And then they discover the first 2 bodies.
Yep, and that would be the bodies of Willie and Frank McLeod.
Yes.
So they found the bodies. I don't know how long they had been laying there dead or how badly decomposed they were. But the one thing, though, is that their heads were missing.
Their heads are both missing. One account has them being skeletons. One account has them still having clothes around them because that's how they were able to ID that it was both the brothers.
Yeah, it was wearing the clothes they recognized.
And one of the skeletons was reaching above his head towards a rifle that was on, like on the tree stump or whatever. Like he was reaching for his gun, possibly when he perished.
See, that's wild though.
And then the gun was rusted and stuff, obviously.
If they are found, if their bodies were found in like those last moments as they were in life, like, he was reaching for a rifle or something like that, like that would suggest like, so if you were to say like, all right, they were attacked by like a tribe or something like that, they would have been killed first and then decapitated. Right. That leads to the conclusion that they were just doing something and boom, something took their head really, really fast. And we don't really, there's nothing really that we know of that can do that. So you know what I mean?
Some speculation was that like maybe an animal took it away, like a bear, right? Could eat your head and walk off with it. I don't know why it wouldn't just pick your whole body up and take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, bears will maul you and shake. I mean, you basically get mauled and shaken around. It's not. We've all seen the Revenant. I've spoken to a guy that survived. He survived a grizzly attack, and he wrote a book about it. And he said like it was. He explained it in detail, and it was violent, man.
Yeah. I don't imagine it to be a pleasurable
really
experience.
Yeah. But he did write a book about it, and it's crazy. But getting off topic here.
Yeah, sorry.
No. Right. So they were found in a place called what is now known as Dead Men Valley. And their heads were missing, but there's some speculations on their death.
Right.
And one of them goes back to we're going back to the hairy giants.
The hairy giants.
The Nahanni Indians.
Right. Indians could have killed.
Or natives, sorry. Or a mad prospector.
And the third guy they were with was also like a suspect until later on they find a skeleton a few miles down the river, which they assume is his. Also missing its skull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that kind of led to growing rumors that the valley was rich in gold, like you said it was, which leads to the lost McLeod mine. Now, once word of that got out, people went a little crazy. Like, we got to find this gold. They had tales of nuggets the size of goose eggs.
That's big.
And creek beds, and the other prospectors came out. Now, we're going to fast forward a couple years now. We're going to 1910. In 1910, there was a man named Martin Jorgensen. He was a Norwegian woodsman, and he went into the Nahanni Valley.
Okay.
Boom, disappeared.
Yeah.
5 years later, 1915, they find his headless body.
Is this the guy with the cabin?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He built a cabin.
Yeah, he had built a cabin for himself.
Very experienced,
Very experienced woodsman. He knew how to survive out there. I guess he was out there by himself, which that's how you want to live. That's cool. But yeah, his headless body was found near the Flat River. And then in addition to that, his log cabin mysteriously burned down.
Yes. And
like the McLeod brothers, his head was never found.
Right. This is why that nickname of the valley itself is
the Valley of the Headless Men.
So
exactly.
Prevalent, yeah.
So, and this is where we get into, they talk a little bit about the curse of the Nahanni Valley. So, whatever, maybe it's a curse, maybe it's some sort of
could be
vicious wildlife that's doing this, but then why take the head, After Jorgensen's death, many prospectors that came out there looking for the gold met bizarre ends, and so this keeps going over the decades. In 1922, we had a World War I veteran named John O'Brien. He was found frozen on a mountainside clutching a matchbook. Now that's not strange or unusual or anything like that. Like, he froze to death out there. But in 1945, an Ontario prospector named Ernest Savard was discovered decapitated in his sleeping bag.
Ooh.
You had other trappers that were out there, Bill Epler and Joe Mulholland. They vanished completely, just without a trace.
Okay, there's a lot of that.
There is a lot of that. And these deaths and disappearances fueled the belief that the Nahanni Valley is, in fact, cursed. Many of those who sought gold in the valley were basically just doomed to suffer a grisly fate. So either found decapitated, found dead, or just never found at all. But that leads us to the Wahila. We're getting there. So now we're going ahead to the 60s.
Okay.
This keeps going over the years, man. In the 1960s, geologists and naturalists began exploring the Nahanni. Some returned with accounts of a large wolf-like creature, which became known as the Wahila. So, in other words, to put it in terms of something we'd understand, like a dire wolf, pretty much.
From like Game of Thrones?
From like Game of Thrones, okay. A dire wolf, a giant wolf-like creature. The Wahila was said to resemble a relict, if I'm going to say this correctly, Amphibian, which is a bear dog that was thought to be extinct for 8 million years. This is like a bear dog hybrid of sorts, not an actual hybrid. And then other people thought it could be a prehistoric relative of a timber wolf, otherwise known as a dire wolf.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was considered to be a possible cause for the valley's many mysterious deaths and disappearances, but they don't eat heads. You know what I mean? So why that doesn't explain the headless part.
I don't know. I've got a couple theories on that, but
Okay.
I don't know of an animal that specifically carries off heads because you would think it's just heavy and kind of annoying. Like they carry off like a finger, or arm, or hand or something.
Right. So now we've got
foot.
Now we have another cryptid in play. So with the Wahila, that's another cryptid. So now we've gotten from giants to cryptids to evil spirits, and now another cryptid. This one's called the Nukluk.
The Nukluk.
Yep. So during that same period, sightings of a short, hairy, half-naked creature was reported near Fort Liad, Nahanni Valley, and Fort Simpson.
Okay.
This creature, known as Nukluk, wore a moose skin loincloth and carried a stone club. I think this is going back to what you were talking about. The caveman thing, yeah.
Okay.
So with a long dark beard, they resembled like the ancient cave-dwelling cannibals from Dene legends.
Okay.
So this actually ties back to the Dene stories. More mysterious deaths and disappearances that happened out there. At least 20 people from this point on, and so now we're ahead in the 60s. At least 20 people are said to have either been murdered or disappeared while searching for the McLeod brothers' lost gold. Wow. So more people come out there, they keep searching for it, more deaths and disappearances. Police report the headless deaths to starvation, natural causes, or freezing, but that doesn't really add up. Like, who's taking the heads? What's taking the heads, and why?
I thought maybe it was like a local hunter or especially back in the day when like tribesmen or something like that found the skeletons, not like fresh, but like found a skeleton. We're like, oh, I'll take this for I don't know, display jewelry, whatever. Just or maybe to keep track of how many people keep disappearing.
It's wild though.
I don't know. Maybe it's one theory. Not very solid.
And then some would say that Nahanni Valley makes it there's like something around it that makes it impossible for like cell phone services to work out there, which I would just say no. There's no cell phone towers out there, bro.
That's probably it.
I don't think there's anything magical blocking it unless you got Starlink out there. You ain't getting shit.
It's pretty remote.
But there's some believe that there's a darker force at work here beyond the natural causes. In addition to the headless corpses and missing prospectors, there are reports of strange lights and UFO sightings. So now we got UFOs in play.
It's everything.
It's
everything.
Like I said, it's
one
just
place.
It's everything. But there's some warnings, some takeaways from this, and the legends and tales of the Nahanni Valley serve as a warning to wilderness and its perilous nature. Don't go out there, guys.
Mother Nature, man.
No amount of gold is worth it, man.
Yeah, I think, and to disturb, it's a national park now, obviously. I don't think you can prospect anymore, but it's a rough environment. And it really goes back to those days, like, the Oregon Trail type thing, you died of dysentery or whatever. Like it's rough to be an adventurer and travel, and all those types of stories are scattered with wild tales like this.
See, this is like, I think the strangest takeaway from this isn't that people are disappearing and being found dead. That would be understandable. It's just that, like, what's taken all these heads? Like,
I don't know.
Why?
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, exactly. And then what and why? Is it one of these like strange creatures out there? Is it some of the natives, as you said, like maybe taking trophies or something like that? But I think Canadian explorer R.M. Patterson summed it up best when he said, "There ain't that many that have come back to tell about it. Men vanish in that country." So, So
facts.
If anybody who might have seen something, dead men tell no tales. So
that's true.
Mm-hmm. So, my ultimate takeaway from this, we always like to wrap on an episode by saying, feasible, debunked, or more information needed. I'm somewhere between more information needed and feasible. I'm leaning on I'm leaning,
maybe not leaning towards aliens.
Maybe not aliens.
But leaning towards, it's a rough environment for sure.
It's a rough environment. It's a place where there's people don't live out there. It's still, even to this day, like current day, that's rugged wilderness out there.
I've got no reason to not believe the stories.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of, it's possible.
It's probable for sure. We know what we know for certain is there's definitely deaths, disappearances, and headless bodies. That much can be said, but that opens up the door for the wider questions, as I said earlier, what and why, and we just don't know. So as we leave the eerie wilderness of the Nahanni Valley behind, one question still lingers: What forces are truly at work in this forgotten place? Whether supernatural, geological, or merely coincidental, the tales have been capturing imaginations for generations. Perhaps this ancient, untamed land prefers to guard its secrets. We may never know. For Zumundous, I'm Doolin.
And I'm Keith.
Stay skeptical, stay weird, and don't wander into the strange wilderness out there, guys. We'll see you next time. You want to go camping?
Sure. Weather's getting cool.
I'll go just right there in my backyard. We can set a fire.
You get a tent, yeah.
It's safe out there. There's no dire wolves or anything
that I know of.
That I know of.
Right.
I don't know.
You never know.
You never know.